Hello. I know that it's Throwback Thursday, and so I'm supposed to have my lovely face to camera, but my camera isn't working today. So I have you back inside the training, and I'll keep to the topic I was going to talk about, which is about whip use and desensitizing your horse to the whip. And rather than seeing my pretty face, you can look at my training material. So we're going to go into the training course. Now, what I want to talk about today is desensitizing your horse to things like the whip, as opposed to habituating your horse to things. And they are quite different. I have a module in here all about habituating your horse to novel objects. And here it is here. So we'll just click into that quickly and have a look. Now, we talk a lot, or you hear a lot of talk about desensitizing your horse to things. And I think it's important that we do recognize there's a difference. When we desensitize a horse, we want it to, really stop reacting to it. And quite often that happens when a horse is subjected to sort of unrelenting pressure. So when you engage in flooding the horse with a new stimulus, so you see that if you look at the way of the horse, the road to the horse, those colt starting competitions, and some of the competitors there really do flood their horse. So they'll go in and they'll use things like, I don't know, you've seen it with a stock whip or a chainsaw even. There is somebody in particular that will go in with a chainsaw, and the horse by this stage is probably exhausted, certainly emotionally exhausted. And what they're doing is systematically desensitizing the horse to that stimulus. And really, it's not something that should be encouraged. If you want your horse to stop reacting to things with fear, a much better option is to habituate your horse to those things. So this is an example of that, where we're habituating the horse to an umbrella, which can be a very scary object for some horses. It's much the same with the whip. We've been talking this week about whip use. And one of the things that you can quite easily desensitize your horse to is the whip. You just have to excuse my dog. He found a big snake last night and he's getting a bit excited about everything he sees. Maggie, come here. Good boy, come here. So it is easy to desensitize your horse. You see horses all the time that are non-responsive to cues, such as, a hard-mouthed horse. Now, a hard-mouthed horse, his mouth isn't any different from any other horse's mouth. It's just that he's been had to put up with a lot of unrelenting bit pressure, and so he's come to ignore that. And it's the same with the whip. If a horse has been subjected to a lot of meaningless whip pressure, like the racehorse, and we discussed yesterday, it's not negative reinforcement, it's punishment. There's nothing the horse can do about that. It just has to put up with being hit with the whip. It becomes desensitized to the whip. So in order to get the same response from that horse, you need to increase the pressure. So you need more whip pressure to get the same response from the horse. So really, in that sort of situation, what you actually want to do is you want to sensitize the horse to the whip, because you want the horse reacting from a lighter cue. And the way to do that is to rehabituate the horse, resensitize the horse to those cues and those pressures if you find yourself you have a horse that is very overly sensitive or desensitized. So back to the whip, one time that it's really obvious, and a lesson that I really like to teach, which you'll find in here somewhere, let me just get back to the courses, is hips to the fence. Now, I teach hips to the fence for mounting to all horses for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I've got really short legs, so it makes it really easy to get on the horse if I can teach it hips to the fence for mounting. And the other reason is that it's a great example of how the horse learns and how to break a lesson down. The other thing it shows you is it's really good demonstration of that particular horse's emotional level. Now, here's a client doing it with her horse, and I love the look on her face. Look at her face when she finishes teaching it. She's so happy that she's done that. And it's an interesting thing because it's very simple to teach, and I explain it very clearly here. We go through a number of different horses, and what you'll find is they all react slightly differently to the whip. So what we're learning, first of all, you can see I've got a summary of it. And in the second video here, we look particularly at the emotional level of the horse. And the little horse I use here is very emotional. So this is a horse that's very sensitive to the whip. Other horses you'll find aren't as sensitive. So with this little horse, all you need to do is raise the whip and point the whip in the direction, and the horse starts to look for answers, whereas other horses are going to need to be tapped with the whip. And what I always try and say there is that, you know, again, we're coming back to what we've been talking about all week, and using the whip as negative reinforcement. And as always with negative reinforcement, a question I'm asked is, how much pressure do I need? How hard should I tap the horse? Or should I even tap the horse? Maybe if the horse just sees the whip, it will react. And that's going to completely depend on your horse's history with the whip. So some horses you can raise the whip and they'll respond. Other horses you're going to need to tap them. If your horse is scared of the whip, you're going to have to habituate your horse to the whip, because it's awful to be scared of anything. You know, it's just as bad for your horse as it is for you to be afraid of something. And you don't want that for your horse. So it's very important that you do habituate your horse to the whip. And this is a great example, because the whip's such an important tool for the rest of your horse's training. This is a terrific little lesson in teaching your horse all about how the whip is simply a cue, and how it really can be an extension of your arm. And horses that have had a history of having whip used as punishment will really appreciate this lesson, and they will be much calmer later. And I get a lot of people that say to me, I can't use the whip because he's terrified of the whip because somebody hit him with the whip. And that is awful, but it is awful also to be afraid for the horse. And you never want the horse to be afraid when you're training. So it's very important that you properly habituate your horse to the whip, and that you teach your horse what the whip is actually all about. So I do recommend you go and do this little lesson. But remember this, you know, somebody wrote on a post of mine the other day that they love my training and this is their favorite lesson. And a lot of people only get this far. This really is a 5-minute lesson. And I really encourage you to teach it. Yes, by all means, do go and teach it. It's jolly useful and it's a lot of fun to teach. And you learn a lot about your horse, and you learn a lot about breaking a lesson down. But start there. Don't finish there. Go and do all the other really great courses in here, starting with the give to the bit work, which is the cornerstone of all of my training. So start there and work your way through each of the modules. You will be so surprised at how quickly your horse starts to come on, and just how easy this is, and how easy it is to break down lessons and really, really improve the partnership you have with your horse. There's so much information in here, and it is all broken down and into really manageable bite-sized pieces, step by step. Also, please don't forget, when you are in there and you are a member, there's a little button down here in the bottom right, and you can press that at any time, and I will be there. I am at the end of that. It's a real-time chat, and if I'm not right at the computer and can talk to you right then, leave me your email and I will get back to you really quickly. So I look forward to seeing you inside the training, and otherwise have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Bye.